Welcome to ICI Podcast. Today's a day that we start covering the book of Enoch. There are multiple translations of the book of Enoch, just like there are of the Bible. I decided I was originally going to go with R.H. Charles, but after reading some of David Robert Palmer, I decided to go with him because it's a smoother, easier read. It's an easier translation to understand. There are also 108 chapters in the book of Enoch. A lot of the chapters are like 2 verses long, so I don't know how long it's going to take us exactly to get through Enoch, but I don't think it will be too long. Like today, we'll be covering the first 5 chapters, 2 of which, like I just said, are only 2 verses long. So also a bit of background on the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch was, in fact, fragments of it, the Aramaic fragments of the 4 of the first 5 sections of the first book of Enoch are, in fact, found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it was confirmed that much of that material existed by the 2nd to the 1st centuries BC. And the scholarly consensus is that it was not written. See, it's called the Book of Enoch, and it's attributed to being him as the writer. It's narrated in Enoch's voice, but in fact, he is not the writer. The book is called a pseudepigraphal because it's attributed to a false author. But scholarly consensus says that it was written by multiple unknown Jewish authors, writing roughly between the 3rd and the 1st century, and then later producing separate works. Those writers produced separate works that were combined later in about the latter part of the 2nd century. The only complete version of the Book of Enoch that survives is in, and I'm probably going to slaughter this, but it's the classical language of Ethiopia, which is Ge'ez. The Ethiopian Bible, in fact, includes Enoch in their Bible as canon, as being inspired works of God. So it is, in fact, in the Ethiopian Bible. Some of the reasons why Enoch was not considered canon for most of the translations for our Bible translations is because it was never in the Jewish canon. Hebraic or the Hebraic text or Septuagint, and it was also written post Malachi, which I don't know who came up with this, but anything written post Malachi was considered non-prophetic. So at that time, it was concerned that maybe there was some theological conflicts, such as angels sinning, marrying, perhaps the origins of evil. It's got very fanciful details in it. And then there was very limited early church acceptance. And it was quoted by some fathers, but never universally. And it was excluded in canon list of mainstream Christianity. And there was no direct endorsement as inspired text. So why have I decided to share the Book of Enoch with you guys? We'll walk through it together, just like I would do any other Bible study. Well, because when I was reading the book of Jude, I stumbled across something which it never had jumped out at me before. And I've never, ever heard anybody ever say this before, but I realized something, and let me read it to you guys. First of all, Jude quotes directly Enoch 1:9. In Jude 14 and 15, it's a direct quote of Enoch 1:9. So that was one of the reasons, which we will cover today. But here's the main one. And this is verse 5 of Jude. So I want to remind you, though you already know these things, that Jesus first rescued the nation of Israel from Egypt, but later he destroyed those who did not remain faithful. And let me remind you, so he's saying these things were common knowledge at the time that Jude wrote this letter, but has been largely hidden from us in this time and age. But let me remind you of the angels who did not stay within the limits of authority that God gave them, but left the place where they belonged. God has kept them securely chained in prisons of darkness, waiting for the great day of judgment. So in the past, when I had read that, I just automatically attributed that to when, well, the war that we hear about in Revelation, where a third of the angels were kicked out because of the war during that war period. That would have been millions of angels. Clearly here, though, if you're paying any attention, we're not talking about the same angels. The angels in Revelation, they were kicked out because of war, and they did not go willingly. They were thrown out of heaven. These angels, Judas talking about, they left of their own accord and came down to earth, committing all kinds of sins. And Enoch, which we won't get in today, but next time, that this was about 200 angels, these angels that left heaven on their own accord. Two separate incidences that it never jumped out at me until my last time I read Jude. I was like, well, the next thing that I'm going to cover with you all is the book of Enoch, just to find out what it says. It's probably going to be, I've heard, it's rather a wild read. But we're going to read it, and I'm going to share it together with you guys, and just keep an open mind, and I think we'll have some fun with it. So that is why I've decided to teach it to you. So why don't we just dive right in? Like I said, we'll do chapters 1 through 5 today. So chapter 1, the word of the blessing of Enoch, how he blessed the righteous elect who will be living in the time of trouble or tribulation. When all those who oppose, that is the wicked and the ungodly, are to be removed and the righteous to be saved. Okay, so what did he say about the elect? Also, notice, the Bible does the same thing. The Bible calls the people of God the elect. Enoch is calling the people of God the elect. On earth, I found this rather interesting. On earth, there's a certain people, a part of the group of people, they're called the elite. But God's people, we're called the elect. We're also called chosen. We are called saints. But this is one of the terms for his people. It is the elect. And Enoch, this book of Enoch, the writers use that term a lot in this book. Now, also, let me point this part out to you. How he blessed the righteous elect who will be living in the time of trouble or tribulation. So when are the elect here? They're all the way through the time of tribulation, at the end of time. They're not in heaven for some 7-year period. That is an incorrect translation of the Bible. And let me give you some biblical verses to support that. There's others, but let me give you a couple here. Revelation 7:14. So he said to me, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Who is this referring to? These ones who came out of the great tribulation? This is referring to the 144,000, which is a symbolic number. It is all of the people who made it through God's people who make it through the time of the end. Okay, all of God's people who are on the earth at that time, we all go through the time of the end. The good and the bad, we're all here. And then we go to heaven. The good people, God's people, go to heaven for 1,000-year time period and then come back. Another verse here in Matthew 24:22 says, and except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved, but for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Again, saying, we're all going to be here, God's people as well. So the time of the end, God does not prolong that so that his people are not lost as well. So continue on with Enoch, verse 2. And Enoch took up his parable, so sharing the vision that he had, and said, Enoch, a righteous man who walked with God, answered and said that his eyes were opened, so he saw a vision, to see a holy vision that was in the heavens from God. He showed me, and I heard holy words of the holy ones, which are angels who are sharing with him, just like they did with John in the book of Revelation. And as I heard everything from them, I also understood what I saw. And I speak not for this generation. Who is he saying the book of Enoch is for? He's saying, but for the generations which are far ahead at a distant period on account of the elect. So he's talking about, the writer's pointing out right from the start that what he is sharing is for a far future generation, specifically the elect. So the next following section that we're going to cover here seems to be referring to Revelation 16, which is the seventh bowl of wrath, depicting what is happening at the time of the end. So verse 3, upon their account I spoke and conversed with him. He will go forth from his dwelling, the holy and mighty one, the God of the cosmos. The eternal God will appear out of the highest heaven with tremendous power and set foot upon Mount Sinai. He will emerge from among the troops of his mighty power. Everyone will be smitten with fear, and the watchers tremble. Watchers are angels. Great fear and terror will seize them all to the ends of the earth. The lofty mountains will shake and collapse and crumble. The high hills melt down like wax in the face of flame. The earth will split open with a chasm, and all things which are in it perish, while judgment shall come upon all, even upon all the righteous. However, with the righteous, with them he will make peace. They will receive shouts of blessing. He shall preserve the elect, and towards them exercise clemency. Then shall all belong to God, be happy and blessed, and the splendor of the Godhead shall illuminate them. Behold, he comes with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy the wicked, and to convict all flesh of their works of ungodliness, which they have ungodly committed, and of all the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. So this is verse 9. This is the verse that is directly quoted by the book of Jude in the Bible verses like I told you about, Jude 14 and 15. And the last few verses that we just read seems to borrow imagery directly from Deuteronomy 33:2, which says the following. This is a blessing that Moses, the man of God, pronounced on the Israelites before his death. And he said, the Lord came down from Sinai and dawned over them from Seir. He shone forth from Mount Paran. He came with myriads or 10,000s of holy ones from the south, from his mountain slopes. So the language sounds very similar to what I just read in Enoch, in what you find in Deuteronomy. So this next section, this next 3 chapters, talks about how God set up creation and how it's unchanging. It stays in its path and in its seasons, just directly as God created and has he ordered, so that nature is obedient, so to speak, to God, and it stays exactly how God created it to be. So chapter 2, observe all the works in the heaven, how they have not altered their ways, and the luminaries which are in heaven, how they all rise and set, each one marshaled forward in its proper order in time, and their seasons showing forth and not deviating from their own assignment. Look at the earth and contemplate the operations that take place in it from beginning to completion, how they do not change, not one of them upon the earth, but all appear to you the works of God. Behold, summer and winter, that the earth is replete with water, and that the clouds, the dew, and the rain alight upon it. Chapter 3, consider and behold the trees, how they appear to wither, and every leaf falls off, except for 14 trees, whose leaves do not fall off. But the old ones remain until the new ones come after 2 or 3 years. So those 14 trees it's probably, the writer is possibly referring to the 14 different species of evergreen trees. I have one of those evergreen trees. It's called a magnolia, which does not drop its leaves during the winter. Very pretty tree. I love those. So chapter 4, And again, consider the days of summer, how the sun begins to be directly above. And you look for shelter and shade because the heat of the sun, and the ground is burning and scorching with heat, and you cannot step either on the dirt or on the rock because of its heat. Clearly, the writer in this case was not a fan of summer. It's actually my favorite season. I just thought the wording there was kind of funny. So, chapter 5. How the trees are sheltered with green leaves, and all their fruits result in value and glory. Contemplate and realize regarding all of these works of his, and understand that the living God has made them so, even he who lives in all of the ages. And his works, all that he has ever done from year to year, are all happening this way. That is, all his works whatsoever finish for him, and their operations they do not deviate. But just as he ordered, all the works come to pass. The sea and the rivers also likewise carry out his word and do not deviate from their operations. You, however, you have not persevered, nor performed according to his instructions, but you have turned away, and you complain against his majesty in proud and harsh words with your unclean mouths. You are hard-hearted because you complain with your false accusations, and because of it, there is no peace for you. So right away, that reminded me of the Israelites, and that's exactly how they were. And unfortunately, we read that, account in the Bible, and we are still just exactly like that. We complain. We're not in obedience. We turn from him. We speak harsh and proud words with unclean mouths. Unfortunately, we have still a lot to learn. But here it says there's no peace for you, for those of us who do this. Verse 5, so you will curse your days, since you will ruin the years of your life, and your damnation will be multiplied by everlasting cursing, and there will be no mercy or peace for you. So because of our rebellion, we are the cause of the curse against us. It's our fault. We turn away from what God has done for us. We turn away in disobedience. We want to do our own wills. We don't want to do his will. So because of that, we bring curses down on our heads. Because of that, we don't have any peace. We wonder why things are always raining, problems are always raining down on our heads. We bring it upon ourselves. Galatians 3:13 tells us, but Christ has rescued us from the curse pronounced by the law. He actually took it on himself. When he was hung on the cross, he took upon himself the curse for our wrongdoing. For it is written in the scriptures, cursed is everyone who's hung on a tree. Okay, so he says right there, he actually took that curse for us. But we like to drag around old man sin with us, and we like to yank that curse back onto ourselves. He took it for us, and when we turn away from him and reject him and we're in disobedience, we bring that curse back on ourselves. In Proverbs 26:2, it says the following, like a fluttering sparrow or a darting swallow, an undeserved curse will not land on its intended victim. Okay, so what's saying here is the enemy, this is where these curses come from, because Jesus came, it's the enemy who comes to kill, steal, and destroy. The shepherd came to give us life, and that abundantly, because he is the good shepherd. You can't be confused as to where that curse comes from. And if it's an undeserved curse, it cannot land on us, okay? But the enemy has become very skilled at getting us to curse ourselves. So there's multiple ways that we can do that. I already talked about one of them, disobedience. So then, we reap the consequences of that, the curses on our own heads, the words that come out of our mouths. We do this to ourselves all day long. I'll never be successful, I'll always be sick, whatever dumb words come out of our mouth, where we're bringing that curse on ourselves. And when we do that, we open the doors for those curses to land. Only things that should come out of our mouths is what is going to bring us success, what is going to bring us good health, what's going to bring us all the good things, and keep away the bad. Now, it's not to say that you can't fix that. You can pray and say, Lord, I'm sure I can't even remember half the things I've cursed myself with, because that's what we've done. And I bind those curses in the name of Jesus, and I loose restoration on myself. So you can fix that. You can turn around and say the right words and do the right things. You come into the agreement, and you come into agreement with the enemy's lies is another way. So Satan is doing this in your ear, and you come into agreement with it. So he cannot hurt you unless you allow him to, unless you give him authority. Satan has no authority in your life unless you hand it over to him. You have the keys of authority. He keeps trying to give. First of all, he blinds you to the fact that you even have the keys of authority. Okay, most of us walk around having no idea that we have any authority. That is a trick of the devil. And then he tricks us into giving him authority. So we take away, we give him all the authority, which rains curses down on our head because we opened the door. We gave it to Satan. We are allowing him in. And just straight rejection of Jesus Christ. When we reject him, well, there will be no peace in our lives. There will be no, and then we'll have all of those curses. So moving on with verse 6, at chapter 5, verse 6. So at that time, your names will be an eternal curse to all the righteous, and they will all call down curses with you as the curse. And all the sinners and the ungodly will also swear using you. And all the humble servants will rejoice, and there will be for them a ransoming of sins, and a release of all compassion, and peace and reasonableness. There will be there for them healing and a pleasant light, and they will inherit the earth. And all you sinners, so God's people, we inherit the earth, we inherit peace and joy and healing. All the sinners, they'll experience no healing, but rather a putting down upon them of cursing. The things coming to the elect are light, joy, and peace, and they will inherit the earth. Again, it says that. It says it here a couple times. But for you, the ungodly, just curses. At that same time, light and joy will be given again to the elect, and they will inherit the earth. Then wisdom will be given to all the elect, and they will all live and no longer sin. This is talking about when we're in heaven now. Neither against the truth, nor according to pride. And there will be light shown in a person, and a knowing, wise perception, and they will never err. Neither will they sin all the days of their lives, and they will certainly not die by the fury of wrath, well, that which is that ending, that judgment, the judgment of wrath, referring to the end times judgment of wrath, but will complete the number of their days, and their lives will thrive in peace, and the years of their rejoicing will be multiplied with exultation and eternal peace all the days of their lives. Okay, so that was Enoch 1 through 5. Next week, we will get to that angel part where the angels leave their first estate, which is heaven, come down here and create all kinds of sin. And so that's what we'll start diving into next week. And you guys, I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope you have a great weekend. I'll see you again next Friday.